We've struggled to release as much information as we have.
Betsy Arakawa, who is married to Gene Hackman, was unable to make a phone call on February 12th. According to reports, she supposedly left the previous day. However, the data from her phone shows a completely different story. A call that doesn't belong was made, and a missed call appeared on the screen. Yet whose turn was it to answer? The police have recently verified that her death date is totally flipped. When Betsy woke up that morning, what really transpired after that? Something shady happened at Gene Hackman's house, a mix-up, a technical mistake, or a terrifying secret. As additional details are revealed, the truth becomes more odd and more improbable. From an individual perspective, these are my thoughts. I won't say for sure, but if these hypotheses are correct, the Hackman story will continue. December 26, 2025, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Media and fans across the world were shocked by the news of the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa Hackman, two titans of Hollywood. It appeared simple at first. On February 11th, Betsy supposedly departed because of problems from the unusual hantavirus pulmonary illness. Gene came next, and he passed away around a week later from cardiac problems in which Alzheimer's played a part. Until the Santa Fe County Sheriff revealed something shocking, it seemed like everything was ended. 3 calls were made to Cloudberry Health at a Santa Fe medical center from Betsy's cell phone on February 12th, the day following her reported demise. Adding to the craziness, her phone rang that afternoon with a missed call notification from Cloudberry Health. Who disconnected on February 12th if Betsy had already left by then? Even more importantly, who was supposed to answer the call in the afternoon? The data from phones is honest. 3 calls were made to Cloudberry Health that morning via Betsy's phone, according to the official report from the sheriff. The contradiction of someone who is no longer physically present using their phone is perplexing. The strangest part is that Cloudberry Health tried to phone her again that afternoon, but she never heard back. If Betsy had already left, then why was her phone showing as active? All of a sudden, the timing is reversed. Why would her phone ring on the 12th if her medical records had already scheduled her departure for the 11th? Someone else may have used Betsy's phone that morning, or perhaps the health data is misleading. Cloudberry Health's chief medical officer, Dr. Josiah Child, gave an interview to the Daily Mail a few days after the mysterious call made headlines. A jaw-dropper came from him. Mrs. Betsy phoned Dr. Child's clinic on February 12th to schedule a checkup, so it's not like Hackman passed away on February 11th. Despite her prior request for an echocardiography for Gene, she suddenly canceled the appointment on February 10th, citing Gene's illness as the reason. Betsy rescheduled the appointment for the 12th morning nevertheless. Dr. Child has said categorically that she did not exhibit any indications of respiratory distress and that she showed no signs of discomfort, the supposed reason for her departure. Nothing having to do with the virus was discussed during the appointment. Strangest part? Betsy never showed up for the appointment, and no one answered the phone when Cloudberry Health tried to reach her that afternoon. Many questions arise as a result of this. Why wasn't Betsy able to reach the clinic if she was still alive that morning? It was first said that she had departed on February 11th, but who made the call on the 12th? The question that these calls inevitably bring up is, when did we really leave? What would have occurred if Betsy had survived till the morning of February 12th? Did Betsy tell Cloudberry Health anything in the first forensic report on the call's content? Has the status of Gene been brought up? Who answered the phone? Who was to receive Cloudberry's afternoon ring if Betsy had departed? Just why did nobody respond? Guess where her phone went? Can you tell me who used it and why? In addition to changing the case's trajectory, these questions point to a more fundamental mystery. Did this tale include any hidden meanings? Police in Santa Fe had to reevaluate their strategy once the news of the mysterious call leaked. The leaving schedule for Betsy Arakawa Hackman is now a mess. Not only does the call on February 12th muddle the investigation, but it also calls into doubt the first forensic assertions. The next day, how could Betsy's phone have worked if she had gone away on February 11th? Following these inconsistencies, the investigation has become more complex than before, despite the sheriff's office's promise to reanalyze phone data and timing. It was first believed that Betsy Arakawa Hackman passed away on February 11th, but a statement from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office shocked the country. With a solemn look, Sheriff Jonathan Ruiz unlocked the case files and revealed fresh information that cast doubt on everything they had previously believed. A sea of cameras saw his every move. There is strong evidence that Mrs. Hackman was alive on February 12th morning, according to our findings. The entire timing of her dying must be reconsidered, which caused the press to freeze for a beat. That one phrase broke all the assumptions. It was not February 11th when Betsy left. After that, what transpired in reality? Cloudberry Health's chief physician, Dr. Josiah Child, to whom Betsy made the enigmatic call on February 12th, is at the center of this change. The news of Betsy's death on February 11th shocked Dr. Child. "I heard her voice that next morning," he stated in an exclusive interview with the New York Times. Dear Mrs. In the wee hours of February 12th, Hackman contacted my medical practice. The words sounded completely normal, slammed down on the investigation as she spoke to my receptionist about making an appointment. Who called the next day if Betsy had already left by February 11th? Cloudberry Health's call records were reviewed by the police, who confirmed that Betsy's phone was accessed at 8:17, 8:22, and 8:35 in the morning, coming up on February 12th. The fact that Betsy scheduled her own appointment for February 13th further clouds the issue. Who would make the appointment for a doctor's visit if they had already left? Nobody can provide a satisfactory response. Betsy had previously requested a cardiac evaluation for Gene out of concern for his fragile health, but this time she wanted one for herself. Dr. Child was adamant that she sounded extremely aware, lucid, and alive. Betsy was indeed ticking that morning, so that's what happened. After that terrifying moment, what killed her, if that's the case? Betsy contacted and scheduled the appointment for February 13th, but she never showed up. Hours after her appointment, Cloudberry Health attempted to reach her that afternoon, but instead of her, the call went to voicemail. After that, Betsy Arakawa Hackman disappeared from public view. Police searched Betsy's phone records and found some questionable information. The most recent outbound call occurred at 8:35 a.m. to Cloudberry Health on February 12th, with the final inbound call occurring at 3:46 p.m. the day, as disclosed by Cloudberry Health. Following 3:46 p.m., there was a complete halt in all incoming and outgoing calls and messages. Her phone was functional in the morning, but then it suddenly stopped responding. After that last morning call, detectives realized Betsy may have lived until February 12th, which meant they had to reevaluate the original forensic claim. Hantavirus complications, an infection spread by rodents, were cited as her cause. However, Dr. Child insists that she did not exhibit any symptoms of this sickness that morning. There are two possible interpretations here. Either the forensic report was flawed and Betsy didn't actually die on February 11th, she was alive that morning but had an encounter shortly afterwards, or the public's perception of events caused the chronology of Betsy Hackman's demise to shift. Full redo was Sheriff Ruiz's commitment. All of our previous assumptions regarding Mrs. Hackman's death have been called into question by the new information. Every possible avenue will be explored, he declared. That necessitates re-evaluating forensic evidence, witness statements, and the possibility of outside interference, given that Betsy may still be alive at daybreak on February 12th. Now it's more than simply a medical passing. It's a mystery waiting to be solved. A single phone call changed everyone's minds about whether Betsy Hackman actually departed on February 11th. Even though she was awake all morning, she remained silent after the last call. After that tragic morning, the main question is, what happened to Betsy Hackman? Santa Fe police received a distress call from Margaret Ortiz, the Hackman's long-term maid, on February 14, 2025. The police were alerted to the scene by a terrifying detail conveyed in her terrified voice. The legendary actor Gene Hackman was discovered by the police in the living room, alone with a teacup and a vacant expression as he ate breakfast as if nothing was wrong, while she stopped replying. Betsy Hackman's lifeless body lay in the main bedroom just a few steps away. When will it end? Nobody knew. How could Gene Hackman, who lived in the house with his wife for days, fail to notice her absence? That was a question that smacked like a ton of bricks. It was more important. Was he truly unaware, or was there another explanation for his silence upon seeing Betsy's lifeless body? First forensics estimates put her absence around 7 days. So she and Gene lived together, and Gene had no idea she had passed away. The first culprit was hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, an extremely uncommon illness that is transmitted by rodents. Now, the obvious problem is that if Betsy had the hantavirus and died, and Gene stayed with her for a week, then why wasn't he also sick? Because of this, doctors weren't sure what had actually killed Betsy. Gene should have displayed symptoms of the easily transmitted hantavirus due to his advanced age and fragility, yet he was perfectly healthy. An alternate theory put forward by forensic physician Caroline Vega is that Gene may have been oblivious to his wife's departure due to his early-stage Alzheimer's disease. According to those close to Gene, his memory had been declining for a while, although he maintained a bright mind while talking. A loved one's departure is one big change that medical records indicate Alzheimer's may reduce awareness of. Gene wasn't the only one. Something is wrong. The maid, cook, and sometimes conversation partner with Betsy, Margaret Ortiz, arrived every day. Why was this not seen earlier? The police wanted to know if Gene was actually oblivious or if he was missing information. Margaret Ortiz became very distressed when questioned. There was a noticeable change in Betsy's attendance, she noted. Every morning she would sit in her chair and read, but I stopped seeing her on February 11th. I inquired with Mr. Hackman, and he simply stated that she was sleeping, Ortiz confessed, adding that she had bought Gene's line thinking Betsy's illness was minor. She carried on with her regular duties without fear of entering Betsy's room. As if that weren't scary enough, on February 13th, she discovered that Mrs. Betsy's bedroom phone had been calling. Cloudberry Health's missed call from 3:46 p.m. was the one she identified, according to police records, on February 12th. However, the ringing ceased as she approached the bedroom door. Suddenly, Gene stepped up behind her, rested his hand on her shoulder, and said, "Don't go in there, she needs rest." Ortiz felt a shudder run down his spine. His expression had changed. I could feel his terror. A red flag was uncovered when the police delved further into the days leading up to Betsy's death. No one, not even Gene's boss or assistant, received Gene's phone call for a whole week. Who sent the one message that appeared on his phone on February 12th from an unknown number that read, "Don't answer it"? The most important question is whether Gene was controlled or unaware of what happened to Betsy. Using the available information, the police put out 3 hypotheses. First, that Betsy's departure went unnoticed because of Gene's Alzheimer's. Second, that others failed to detect it sooner. And third, that someone else must have known something was wrong. Because the Cloudberry called for a later departure, Betsy did not leave on February 11th. But at that time, who else was home? Could someone be manipulating Gene into thinking he was alone by preventing him from reaching out? Or was he actually alone? Why should Ortiz be prevented from entering the bedroom if Gene was oblivious? Who sent the message, "Don't answer it"? Why was Gene unharmed by the hantavirus if it killed Betsy? The most important question is, what transpired between the morning of February 12th and Betsy's complete disappearance? Does anything sinister lurk in the shadows, or is this story just getting weirder? It was 3:46 in the afternoon. On February 12th, Betsy Hackman's phone was contacted by Cloudberry Health. This is the terrifying part. Her reported departure date was February 11th. Raymond Keller, the sheriff, was shocked. By scouring the carrier's records, he discovered that Betsy's phone was turned on many times between February 11th and 13th. Not only was it ringing, I am unable to access the phone since someone left. And whose job was it then? Police discovered Betsy's phone on her bedside table during their search of the Hackman residence. It was unbroken and in pristine condition. However, it was tracked by GPS from late February 11th until early February 12th. At 4:17 a.m., it moved to a different position in the home. On the 12th, it went off in Jean's regular morning hangout, the living room. In the second, it went off in the bedroom at 2:52 p.m. And 54 minutes after that, Cloudberry's missed call came. In the afternoon, who answered Betsy's phone if she had already left? Even though the Cloudberry call was ignored, the phone was still visible in the carrier's logs. Someone could have heard the bell. Betsy had contacted Cloudberry Health that morning to schedule an appointment, and the doctor who took the phone, Dr. Josiah Child, said he was unaware that she had gone away. I was only verifying this. It turned the tables on the police. How could Betsy have called on February 12th if she had already left by February 11th? Someone heard the call but chose not to answer it. Who else may have been in the Hackman home on that fateful day? An obstacle developed when the police requested video footage from Michael Henshaw, Jean's assistant, and the home security system was not adequately reviewed. The cameras ceased filming on February 10th, according to what I saw. Tech failure or intentional deletion. All footage from February 11th to the 13th disappeared due to a system issue. What is the purpose of cooperating with Betsy's departure? None of the cameras caught Jean or Betsy in the act for an entire week. For that to function, the truth must be concealed. On February 12th, who was the guest at the Hackman residence? Could someone unnoticed by Jean have sneaked in and out? Across from the Hackmans lived Ellen Wexler, who turned out to be an unexpected witness. She noticed a black SUV parked in front of the house on the morning of February 12th. No one came or went from it, but it remained there for at least an hour according to her observations. The data from the neighboring cameras confirmed it. At 10:35 a.m., an SUV pulled up. On February 12th, however, upon inspection of the license plate, it was non-existent. Subtly, the SUV rolled up and disappeared. Tell me who or what it was. What does it mean that Betsy's phone continued to ring after she left? The detectives dug more and discovered a morning text message that Betsy had erased from her phone. It was retrieved using data recovery. Minutes after it arrived, the message that stated "We need to talk" was wiped, and its sender was unknown. Who washed it? Betsy would never have succeeded. Someone must have rung her phone on the 12th, otherwise Jean would have been unaware. Someone in the home may have been the only one to touch Betsy's phone that day. The farther they delved, the less like a casual passing it felt. Can you tell me who used Betsy's phone on February 12th if she departed on February 11th? What transpired thereafter, given that she managed to phone Cloudberry that morning? Tell me who was behind the wheel of that phantom SUV. This is over. Now we can have a conversation. Who dialed while someone else isn't available? What does that imply? But what exactly is being buried? A shocking discovery was made when the police reviewed Betsy Hackman's call records. On the morning of February 12th, she scheduled a wellness check with Cloudberry Wellness, not for herself, but for Jean Hackman. According to Dr. Josiah Child, who handled her call, she requested to schedule a cardiac checkup for Mr. Hackman. Dr. Child's remarks changed the perspective of the case. She hadn't asked before. I recall it well. Betsy was probably worried about more than simply Jean's health. She had already contacted Cloudberry Health on February 12th. Betsy had scheduled a checkup for Jean on January 29th, according to his medical history. However, the strangest aspect was that on February 10th, Betsy canceled the appointment, claiming that Jean was sick. She phoned to schedule a new one 2 days later on February 12th. In the time between February 10th and 12, what happened to make her reconsider? Why not just reschedule instead of canceling the first slot? While Betsy claimed that Jean was sick on February 10th, housekeeper Maria Esteban, who was there on both days, noticed something different. He appeared to be in terrific form. There was no indication that Gene was unwell, as I saw him have breakfast and roam the garden as usual. Why then would Betsy advise to cancel, and why was there an abrupt change on February 12th? Dr. Child revealed something else. Betsy had contacted regarding Gene's heart exam a few weeks ago. There were no warning signs, but she was quite concerned and continued inquiring about subtle symptoms. Even if Betsy had been worried about Gene's heart for a while, why was there such a haste on February 12th? Did she learn anything unsettling about Gene's health, or even worse, a darker secret? As they dug more, they discovered Betsy's early February 12th call to a Cloudberry cut-short switchboard. The data indicates that it operated for 4 minutes and 32 seconds before stopping. "I was explaining tests when she blurted, 'I've got to go,' and hung up," Dr. Child said. "Because Betsy abruptly ended our conversation, I was unable to inquire as to why. Did you see anyone? Was someone trying to get her to stop talking? Or did she hear something?" On the same day that Betsy requested Gene's initial appointment, February 10th, the police discovered a Santa Fe Meds pharmacy receipt in her handbag, an omitted detail. Along with a home urine test kit, she had purchased medication to assist her heart. Immediately prior to canceling, she seized these. What is its significance? Did she personally check Gene, come up with an excuse to cancel the appointment, or worry that Gene was in danger from something other than illness? What did Betsy discover about herself or Gene before leaving? How come the morning call was cut off? She was either stopped or observed. Above all else, did anyone anticipate that she would never be able to land the role? An unresolved mystery. Betsy Hackman arranged for Gene to see a doctor for a checkup, but she mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Weird threads start popping up in the probing results. If the police are correct, this is no ordinary death. Betsy had knowledge of something, and someone ensured that it remained hidden in the days after her official disappearance. The public believed that a lady in her twilight years was peacefully passing away, as no one saw anything unusual. Then the tables turned. Medical records, suspicious calls, physician statements, and phone records all indicate that Betsy will not be departing on February 11th as originally said. If that's the case, then each and every other guest before you was mistaken. Strangest of all, Gene Hackman left precisely 1 week after that. Do you think it's that easy, or a clever plot? They claim he died of old age. Silent everyone goes. "We must modify the timeline after reviewing new evidence," Sheriff Nathan Caldwell officially announced, shocking everyone. The announcement that Betsy Hackman had gone away on February 11th caused quite a stir in the media. For some reason, Gene never once brought up Betsy that week if she didn't depart on February 11th. Who could have possibly lost touch with her after February 12th if she survived that long? Was Gene aware of the reality, which was more important? Something unsettling occurred between February 11th and the 18th, and no one is willing to confront the truth, although every response points to the same conclusion. A week after Betsy, Gene Hackman departed. Old age, health failing, yet peculiarities were discovered upon deeper inspection. There are no indications of a serious illness, a stroke, heart failure, or that Gene was ever critically ill in the forensic report. Was his sudden departure a mere coincidence or some sort of hidden code? Even fewer people noticed the information that Gene knew before the finale. For the whole week following Betsy's death, Gene said nothing. There was not a tweet, a phone call, or an immediate arrangement for a funeral. Some who were close to Gene report that in his latter days he appeared troubled, muttering words nobody understood, as if he were wondering, "Why did it go this way? I want to know what occurred." Is it true that Gene knew Betsy's truth and was broken by it? That's the key question that an old friend of mine brought up. Was he trying to keep anything secret, or worse? The most peculiar part was how the police dealt with the situation. Despite warning signs such as Cloudberry's missed call on the afternoon of February 12th and Betsy's phone being active after the purported escape. Betsy lived past February 11th, according to Dr. Child. Quickly buried was Gene's nebulous demise shortly thereafter. which ought to have prompted a more substantial investigation. No definitive findings, no autopsy, and no press access to case records, all in the forensic files. Something bigger, concealed too much, is at work there. That's not usual. Nothing could be more coincidental than this. Cloudberry calls and phone records show that Betsy was still alive on February 12th, even though she was marked as gone on February 11th. Jean continued to exist for a week after Betsy's death without making any reference to her or responding to her grief. He seemed to vanish for no apparent reason. Police reversed the chronology precisely 7 days later without providing an explanation. No trace could be found since the files were promptly cleaned away. Not by chance, but by an unwritten story. Sure enough, neither Jean nor Betsy Hackman is willing to be clean about what they know. The most terrifying aspect is that someone made sure the truth dies. Police closed it, but too many questions remain. All leads have been exhausted and all witnesses have disappeared. A hush fell over the story of Jean and Betsy Hackman. How artificial was the silence? Maybe everyone else has moved on, but those of us who have been keeping tabs know that this is far from done. The truth may still be out there, and the question is, will anybody be able to survive the hunt? An unproven hypothesis woven from the strange threads of the Hackman case involving Jean and Betsy. Perhaps everything is just a fluke, or perhaps there is some hidden reality. In any case, we may never know the whole truth since the questions persist, circling like ghosts from a bygone era.